Welcome to Tales from the Trenches Tuesdays. Today, it is my honor to have Dolph Goldenburg with me. Dolph has a track record of guiding organizations through leadership transitions, strategic planning, and board development. In his 11th year as a nonprofit executive, Dolph lost touch with himself, experienced extreme burnout in 2013, and was horrified to realize that he had become a toxic human being. After giving 8 months' notice and onboarding his replacement, Dolph spent almost a year wandering the globe to rediscover a sense of awe, his compassion, and his zest for life. Guess what? He found it. Dolph started successful nonprofits in late 2014 to strengthen the nonprofit sector through consulting, podcasting, and publishing. It's one of the few consulting practices that has published a manifesto and is guided by principle, not profit. His clients have included large nonprofits like North Coast Opportunities and Hope Atlanta, and also small but mighty nonprofits like the Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund and Pebble Tossers. So, welcome, Dolph.
Thank you, Jack. It's so good to be here.
I was absolutely mesmerized at how candid you were in your bio. And it's a real unique thing. Most people don't lay out their issues quite as much as you have done with me. So can you tell me what life was like in 2013? How did you know you had extreme burnout? Because so many folks today are experiencing that extreme burnout in fundraising.
I can, but let me just say real quick about bios. My pet peeve are those bios that say this person swung from success to success until reaching the pinnacle that they're at now, and they've not done anything wrong in their lives ever, and everything's always been great. Those are the people I'm suspect of. Those are the people that I'm like, seems too good to be true. So, right. So I honestly, I try really hard just to be super candid about it. But how did I know? There were a lot of signs that I missed, honestly, and when I talk about this, I'm also really clear. Like this is not something I'm proud of, having missed these signs. And if I could go back in time and kind of shake myself and say, Dolph, you're missing these signs, and you don't have to go through this. I honestly, my life would have been better then, and I might not have to have go through everything that I did. But just a little background. I start my second time I was a permanent executive director. I started in 2009, which was as the economy was melting down. I started an organization that had significant financial losses, and quite frankly, it was clear when I started that I potentially could be their last executive director. And I dove in, and that's my nature. I'm kind of an all-in person. I'm a 100% or a 0% person. I'm either in or I'm not. And so I dove in. But I'll also share with you that I took an attitude that honestly would have surprised me that was in social work school. And I took the attitude of, we are not just going to survive, we are going to thrive, and we are going to grow at all costs. And growing at all costs during the worst recession really since, the Depression of the 30s, that takes a toll. And it took a toll on me as a leader. Frankly, it took a toll on everyone who worked at the organization. And honestly, it caused me to burn out, and it caused me to become just a toxic human being. So some of the signs I remember distinctly. And by the way, this is before I realized I had burned out. Again, I missed some signs. I remember one day at home, it was after work. I would typically stand at the bar in our living room and open the mail every night. And I was opening the mail and I was just weeping. Literally, tears were just dropping. I wasn't crying, I wasn't bawling, but tears were just dropping out of my eyes and just falling on the page. And my husband, who, let me say, thank goodness, stuck with me during the toxic period. Honestly, I'm a lucky man. But my husband, I remember him asking, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Nothing's wrong. I'm just sad all the time." And so clearly I was struggling with some depression, but the depression was frankly more about as I look back on it, that depression was more about me unconsciously realizing that I'd become someone I did not want to become. I'd become someone who no longer cared about relationships at work, no longer cared about personal relationships, frankly, only cared about the numbers and only wanted to see the numbers go up. And it was punishing on me and was punishing on everybody around me. And the problem when the leader is toxic, the executive director or really any manager, but any manager has the ability to make the life of everyone who works for them miserable.
Right.
And honestly, I did that, and it's one of the greatest shames of my life. Is I went to social work school, I knew better, and yet I still engaged in behavior that frankly was just wrong, and not legally wrong, but ethically wrong, because again I was too focused on numbers and I was not focused enough on people, and so how it finally came to a head is my executive assistant came to me one day and she said to me, Dolph, you're not the person who started here. And that didn't quite wake me up either. And I was kind of snippy about it. And so then she brought a stream of people in to tell me.
Wow.
And when one person says it, okay, it's one person. when everybody tells you it, you either accept that it's you or
Right.
you have no self-awareness whatsoever.
Yeah, Dolph, I find that as fundraisers, we put such immense pressure on ourselves. And, when you're looking at that numbers game, that, as successful as you are, well, then there's just the pressure next year. If you increase revenue by 5%, well, next year you got to increase it by 7%. Right? It's just a never ending, no charity's ever said, what, we have enough money. We're okay. And part of it is we do it ourselves, to ourselves. But the other part is we're always trying to, make the world a better place. And money is just a tool to do that. So we're just an intermediary to get from A to B. It's just with that injection of money. So can you?
Absolutely. Absolutely, and I'll share with you. It's funny you and I were talking before we hit record that I like you, I'm on the road a lot. Like you have been in times in your career, I'm on the road a lot. And so last night, as I was flying back to Atlanta, I was spending some time with Kim Klein's grassroots fundraising for social change, and that's not the exact title, but something like that. And one of the things she said, and it really resonated, is as fundraisers, and whether you're the executive director who does not have a development director, whether you're the development director, or even if you do have an executive, even if you do have a development director as an ED, everyone still looks to you to kind of be the chief fundraiser, honestly, and yeah, you're right. There's never a point at which you're like, okay, I've done everything I could do to raise money. And what's so critical is that we ruthlessly prioritize, and we really focus on those activities that are likely to build relationships, because relationships are what generate revenue, and we know that. And so we focus on those, but we just ruthlessly prioritize. Sometimes that means having difficult conversations with a board member, or if we're the development director, with our executive director, and I'd say, we really need to look, for example, we really need to look at the number of events we're doing, because we're doing all these events that bring in $10,000 or $15,000, and if we spent the same amount of time and resources on individuals outside of events, we could probably bring in 50. So I do think it's about looking at frankly, what activities you can do that will build relationships and generate the most revenue.
Yeah, yeah. And, I think that events, um, they obviously have their positives and negatives. My thought has always been that they're much more of a friend raising than they are in a fundraising. And maybe it's an entry into your charity as opposed to the pinnacle of someone's commitment. So a lot of times, actually, I've actually said that sometimes these events shouldn't be done by the fundraising folks. It should be done by the Marcom folks, and take it for what it is. Either it's a stewardship event, or it's an entry event, or even farm it out and hire a firm to do the event so that your folks can focus solely on raising those bigger dollars and having those deeper relationships.
Absolutely. And I'll share with you, and like you, I often view events as friend raising events. But if that's the case, use those events to actually focus on the relationship. So think through, okay, what are you going to do before the event, during the event, and after the event to actually build relationships with people? Because if it's friend raising, then you better have more friends, or you better have stronger friendships at the end of the event than you did before the event.
Absolutely amazing to chat with you. If people wanted to get hold of you, how would they go about doing that?
So the best way, if you go to successfulnonprofits.com, and that's our consulting practices website. I'm also on LinkedIn. I always joke there's only one Dolph Goldenburg in the world. So if you look on LinkedIn for Dolph Goldenburg, you will find me.
There you go. Dolph, absolutely amazing. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Jack. It's so good to see you again.
Hi, folks. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button right here.